Hi, everyone. Welcome to Studio Jake. I am, of course, your host, Jacob Airy. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and share this out, as well as ring that little bell, because as Steven Crowder says, the subscriptions mean nothing. But I am joined with one of my favorite YouTubers, and I discovered last time I had her on that she is a fellow nerd. So yes. Megan Harris, host of ThatSweetDisposition. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
And one thing that I found out me and Megan have in common is we love the Netflix series. Now, I have not seen Jessica Jones season 2 yet, all honesty. Same. But I have seen all up until we've watched everything, and we've just found out that Iron Fist 2 has wrapped, Luke Cage 2 has wrapped, Punisher 2 has begun filming, and season 3 of Daredevil, I can't remember if it's filming or if they're in pre-production, something like that. Yeah. But we've got all these great shows getting started. So we're going to start with Luke Cage. And I have to admit, whenever we talked about this last time, I was surprised by how much I liked Luke Cage. I was not expecting to like it just because and I think that's also my comic book elitism, I guess. Yeah. I never really was a fan of Heroes for Hire. Yeah. But I'm glad I was pleasantly surprised by how much I like it. So expectations are riding high for Luke Cage season 2. Yeah. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts? Like, we know that they're introducing a new villain. They're Bushmaster. Now, I'm not familiar with Bushmaster, but one thing too is Misty Knight is getting her robotic arm, and they're saying it's not from Stark. So who? Really? Yes, that was a thing. They're saying it is not a Stark Enterprise robotic arm. So that there's lots of speculation flying about that. So yeah. What are you excited about season 2?
Gosh, I'm really excited. I just rewatched the trailer and I realized how I think it's so interesting how now Luke Cage everyone knows who he is. Everyone's very familiar with him. He's kind of like a hero on the streets of Harlem. They have like pictures and stuff. So I think it's really cool to see. He's like one of the only people in like the Marvel universe on Netflix who's kind of out and like proud of like being like, I'm this like superhero. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see how everyone reacts to that and all that. And that's going to be a big part of the show as well, from what I've been seeing in season 2. So I think that's really interesting. I'm also really excited for the villain because he's bulletproof as well. And he was able to actually harm Luke. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. And it also seems like they're kind of doing like a Luke, like Misty Knight kind of duo thing. So I think that will be really interesting because I liked Misty in season 1.
I did too, and she was another one. From the trailer of the first season, I was prepared not to really care about this character, but Misty Knight is really cool, and she was great in the Defenders.
Oh yeah, I loved her in Defenders. I thought she was I felt like the Defenders was really like Matt and Elektra centered, but she was really like. There were some like characters and some scenes that kind of brought you back. Oh, this is about everyone. Just a nice reminder. So yeah, so it was I really liked her in the Defenders as well. I think that I liked her more in there, I think.
And that was really cool how, I know Defenders kind of gets a lot of hate, but I thought that they, hello, sorry about that, everyone. For some reason, my live stream cut out. I don't know why. I'm going to try to get Megan back here in just a second. I apologize. I don't know why it did that. But anyway, yeah, we were talking Luke Cage. Where we were talking about how all the stuff, I don't know why that happened. That was really annoying. I'm going to get, hang on, I'm going to try to get Megan back here just a second. But anyway, fantastic stuff as usual. Megan is spot on about Misty Knight. And one thing we brought up is, she loses her arm in the Defenders, which is kind of unusual. They kind of went with that. I honestly didn't think that they would do that, but they did. And so we're trying to figure things out as the show progresses and how Luke Cage is going to progress. I actually don't know that much about the villain in Luke Cage. I understand his name is Bushmaster, and he is a kind of a minor villain, is my understanding, but I don't know how they're going to take this, because these comic book stuff, they tend to go in different directions with this. But I'm trying to get Megan back. I apologize about this. I don't know what happened with it. It just dropped suddenly. The YouTube. They don't like us very much. We're talking about Netflix, The Punisher, and Luke Cage. And let's try one more thing before I give up completely. And all right, so I invited Megan back on, so hopefully she'll be able to pop back up here in just a second. But anyway, so we're talking about Bushmaster, and I was doing a little bit of reading on him, and he's going to be the main villain for Luke Cage. His real name is, there's actually a couple of different versions, John McIver, Quincy McIver. I guess they're brothers and whatnot. But anyway, Megan, you're back.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. The YouTube feed just died on me suddenly. I guess Netflix doesn't like what we're saying, even though we're crazy.
Honestly, at this point, YouTube is cutting off everyone's feed, so it's okay.
Well, glad we were able to get you back. So. Yeah. Anyway, I was just explaining. I looked up Bushmaster on Wikipedia, and because we all can trust Wikipedia, and apparently he's got. Now, I didn't get this from the trailer, but apparently he's got bionic arms and he's got a bionic tail. So,
is that in the show? Or
I don't think so. I didn't see that in the trailer. To me, the trailer made it look like they're going to make him a magical villain.
Yeah, he came from prison, because when they were trying to figure out information from him, they went back to one of his previous cellmates, and he kind of looks, I got the interpretation that he kind of went through the same thing as Luke Cage in prison. So I didn't know if they're going to do something similar or follow closely with the comics.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. One of the I'm not too familiar with the actor who they cast to play Bushmaster. So that's always, for me, that's always exciting. So I'm like, is this guy going to be great? Or
he looks kind of like Chris Rock. I was looking at him. I was looking at him at first. I'm like, wait, that's not Chris Rock. And no, it wasn't. But he looks just like him. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. But I'm really excited. I think it's going to be really interesting now because Luke Cage always appears as he's untouchable, literally. You can't get to him. And so having someone who is just kidding, I'm right here. I don't know if you read the Defenders comics. I am not caught up, unfortunately, but I was collecting them at one point when they first came out, and they had it's not Bullseye. Gosh, what's his name? It's Luke Cage's brother.
Luke Cage's brother. I can't think of his name.
Gosh, what is it?
No, Bullseye is Daredevil's.
Yeah, that's Daredevil.
Yeah.
I
can't think.
It starts with something. Yeah, I can look it up. But so his brother in the comics was the one who wasn't untouchable, but he had the special bullets that could harm Luke Cage, that could go through his skin, these Yeah, so I thought that was so interesting. And that was kind of in Luke Cage season 1 already.
Right.
But yeah, so we did kind of see where, oh, like Luke Cage isn't untouchable, but I think this is on a whole different level. Like he actually made him like bleed and actually was like, and he's himself seems bulletproof because bullets were falling out of him. So I think that's going to be really interesting.
One thing I'm a little curious about, because the trailer barely touched on it, and they did touch on all his defenders, is where Mama Brown's storyline is going to go.
Yeah.
That's going to be, I'm really curious about that, because she went from just a character you're kind of annoyed at. I mean, you know, typical corrupt politician. And then now she's taken on this role as this very devious villain. Yeah. And so I'm pretty excited to see what they're going to do with that.
I remember hating her, but I was kind of like, wow, like she's just evil.
Right.
Like she's just evil. So it was really interesting. One thing I know that's going to happen is I know they're going to be political.
Right, of course.
In season 2, of course. Which I don't know. How do you feel about that? I think we kind of talked about that before, but like, how do you feel about that for like Luke Cage?
Well, if it depends on how much it is, because they did it a little bit in the Defenders, but it was more roll your eyes than like, come on, you know,
like white privilege stuff, and you're like, can I see fighting?
Exactly. But I think too, they think. I mean, they, as in the writers, they think that's what their fan base wants, and what they don't. I think they don't realize that Marvel tried this. You know, they hired what's his name? That guy that everyone says is lyrical, but he's not really. I can't think of his name, but they hired him to write a Black Panther comic. It was called Black Panther and the Crew. And it was supposed to be a 15-part series, but they canceled it after 8 issues because the sales were so bad.
Oh, I think I heard about this.
Yeah, it was a big deal. And then what made it worse was one of the Marvel directors said, "Oh, well, it's just because nerds don't want to be diverse. They don't want diversity in comics." And it's like, no, it's just he's not a good writer,
right? And also, I think a lot of people like this stuff because it strays away from like real world politics and everything that's going on, and it's kind of like a little happy place where we can step aside from that. And of course, like you said, I don't mind like a little bit of political stuff, obviously, but I think when it's very like in your face, that's one of the reasons I am so thankful that the Punisher writers did not screw that up. They really had that balance and like complete nuance throughout the show. There was no specific agenda being pushed. I actually thought that Karen in the show was going to be I thought she was going to be anti-gun. But she actually ended up talking and being like pro-gun and everything. So I thought that was really cool in Punisher. But I really appreciate the nuance in that show. So I'm hoping they can take some tips from the Punisher and incorporate them in season 2. But I'm prepared for like whatever might come our way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually a perfect segue into the Punisher season 2. Now, I was a little surprised because the Punisher season 2 didn't end very tragically. I mean, it did for, spoiler alert, it did for Billy Russo. Yeah. But it didn't really end as tragic. And I actually have a friend who said, I'm not watching season 2 because I expected season 1 to end in tragedy, and it didn't. And she was completely disappointed. And I'm kind of like, well, I think it was good for this first season because none of Punisher's main villains, like you don't have the Saints, you don't the Saint crime family, you don't have the Russian, you don't have, and now they're just now introducing Jigsaw. Yeah, but you actually, I know. You actually had some info about some post-production photos that had been leaked online. So why don't you tell everyone about those?
Oh, well, I saw them the other day. I'll have to send them to you, but it's Frank and he has the Punisher vest on and hair's like really short. He's like ready. I think him and Billy are having like another fight scene because Billy's there. But in the pictures that got leaked, his face isn't like messed up. It has some scratches, but it's fairly like all right. It just looks like he got hit around a couple times. So I'm really confused as to how, I mean, literally his face was scraped against like that mirror glass. And like at the end of the season 1, you see his face just bundled in like wrapping paper or whatever that is. So I'm really surprised that, I mean, maybe he was able to heal himself, or maybe he like got like surgery, fixed it. I don't know if there's like going to be a time gap. And there's also pictures of Frank with like this younger girl. So she's like a teenage girl, maybe a little early 20s, I would say. And then he's pictured with her. So I think she's going to play a role in kind of aiding him when he's, you know, homeless and like going from place to place and all that. So really exciting.
I know. I'm pretty. Season 1 blew me away, and I have to admit, like the show had like, you know, the Walking Dead level kind of violence, and that doesn't really bother me.
Absolutely,
you know, I expected that for the Punisher, right?
Yeah.
And so I have to admit, the part where he beat up the CIA guy, and spoiler alert again, he kills the guy very gruesomely.
Agent Orange.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, so
yeah.
I was thinking, wow, if this level of gruesomeness, I can't wait to see how he mangles Billy Russo's face. But then all he does is slam it against a mirror. I have to admit, I was telling someone I was a little disappointed that wasn't disappointed.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed as well. I really wanted him to just go in, and obviously I knew he wasn't going to die, but you just really want to see that. But I'm glad we got to see Agent Orange though, because he was the one who started it all. He's the one who orchestrated killing Frank's family. I mean, of course, everyone else went along with it. They were okay with it, but he's the one who orchestrated it. And I mean, I thought it was this is why I like the ending, because for me, Frank isn't at peace, but he got his revenge. Right. You know, he finally got everyone who killed his family and who caused him that harm, who caused him to become the Punisher. And for me, I was at peace with the ending, and I was like, wow, like what's going to happen next? I felt like it's a very like ambiguous ending. That's why I think it's so interesting that he's like with like this younger girl, and like what role is she playing now and all that stuff.
And I think this actually asked this question, because a lot of like the previous Punisher films didn't really say this. Well, what if he got everyone? Does he keep going? Does he stop? You know, the first Punisher with what's his name? James something. I can't think of his name.
I don't even know.
The one where John Travolta's the villain. That one, he kills everyone. But then you're kind of like, well, where does he really go from here? And then the Punisher Warzone, he's just in this ongoing perpetual state of battle. And I guess it's more comic book accurate, but I think Netflix did a kind of a good step where they're saying, okay, he's gotten everyone. Yeah. So how does he become the Punisher again? I'm actually really excited to see how they're going to do that. Yeah.
And no, same here. It's kind of like a never ending cycle. That's why I always say that there's a difference between the Punisher and Frank Castle. Right. You know, like there's the moments where he's Frank Castle, he's himself, he's human, and then he just goes. There's times where he's just full Punisher. But what did you think about the torture scene? I think that was episode 11 or 12. When they were torturing Frank.
I thought it was a torture scene. I mean, it did freak me out.
It didn't freak me out, but it was just so hard to watch. Probably just because I want to go in and save Frank. You know, you're like, oh, like, is this it? And wow, that was crazy. And they were like pumping him with like adrenaline. And I mean, of course, it's torture and everything, but it was really hard for me to watch. It was really sad.
Netflix does this really cool thing where, like, when he appeared in Daredevil season 2, you actually empathized more with the Punisher than you did Daredevil. Yeah. And I thought that's really good writing. And I think that they did a good job of carrying that on into season 1 of The Punisher. So I'm all excited for season 2.
Yeah, no, that's what I remember watching season 2 of Daredevil. And I just got done with season 1. I loved Wilson Fisk. So to go from Wilson to Frank, it was because Wilson's just like awful, and he has like no moral code. I mean, he will kill anyone, anything. And then you go to Frank, who you're like, okay, he does have a moral code. You see his agenda, you see what he's trying to do, and you really sympathize with him. So I think that's what made everyone really like him, you know, and be very intrigued by him.
You know, I don't know if this is true. Of course, this is one of those internet things, but apparently they're saying that Wilson Fisk is going to appear in The Punisher season 2 and Daredevil season 3.
Oh, so I hope really cool. So. I love Wilson. He was definitely what made me love Daredevil season 1, especially when Daredevil season 1 was kind of slow, because at the beginning it's a little slow, and so you're learning more about Wilson. And for me, just because normally you see villains on TV with kind of like a code, like even Negan from The Walking Dead has a code, you know, like women, children, you know, all that stuff. And and then like Frank has his code. And so to see Wilson, who literally will kill anyone and anything just for that power, except for Vanessa, his fiance, I just was so intrigued by just how awful he is. You don't see something like that a lot.
That's true. And one final thing I want to get to then, it's Iron Fist season 2.
Yeah.
And I believe you said that they announced that Finn Jones announced on Instagram that it had wrapped.
Yeah.
What do you think is coming for Iron Fist season 2? Because you see this, they did the more mystical side in season 1, and they carried that over into the Defenders. Do you think we're gonna see more? I know we're gonna have his friend, what's his name, is gonna come back. Yeah. But do you think we're gonna see more like vigilante style Iron Fist?
I think just because Danny wants to save everyone and everything at all times and will summon the Iron Fist, I think we're going to see that. I know Joy is mad, very mad. And who was she meeting with in like the end of season?
It was his friend who was also from Kunlun. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I'm expecting Joy to really go in on Danny, but I think that him and Colleen Colleen's taking it hard in Defenders. I really like that transition. We got like that was fresh from like Iron Fist season 2. So I think she's still kind of struggling with, you know, being betrayed, being like in the cult, being lied to. And so I think we're going to see a lot of her frustration in season 2, and I think Danny's really going to have to help her with that.
I think so too, and I would like to see, because there's a couple of different things. Like we know, like I said, we kind of know who the villain is. Obviously, it's going to be Danny's friend from Kunlun, or ex-friend from Kunlun. But you know, they're still being kind of cagey with it. Like compared to, we know that Bushmaster is going to be the villain in Luke Cage. We know that Jigsaw and the Punisher, but we don't really know. They're doing the same. And I haven't seen Jessica Jones season 2, but we don't really know who the villain is.
Yeah.
You know, the trailer gave nothing.
The hand is kind of just like a reoccurring thing in the whole Marvel universe on Netflix. So I'm thinking it's just going to be the hand, unless Joy and his ex-friend, who I literally forgot the name of, but I think unless they bring someone in, I don't know. It does. I'm really curious because I'm not quite sure about that.
What I'm curious is there's a character, and he appears in Avengers versus X-Men where he's called Thunder Fist, and he somehow was able to get the power of the Iron Fist on his own. And in the beginning, he was an enemy of Iron Fist, but then later he actually becomes like a friend of an ally. And so I'm wondering if somehow they're going to work him in. Yeah. And there's going to be, because we still don't know what happened to Kunlun, if it just disappeared or were they invaded.
I think they were invaded.
You think they were invaded?
I think they were invaded. Yeah. I'm not sure. I guess the hand got to them. I don't know, because Danny literally up and left. Up and left, goes back, and it's gone. He's like supposed to be there for the sole purpose of defending them. And you're just like, Danny, what are you doing? So I think they were invaded. Not sure where everyone went. Not sure if they're like slaughtered. Not sure if they took them somewhere, if they're like held hostage. I'm not quite sure. So it's really weird. We were left on a pretty big cliffhanger, I think.
And one thing I'm curious how they're going to grow the character, because one thing I do kind of agree with some of the people who don't like Iron Fist is they said he didn't really grow from Iron Fist to Defenders, and I kind of agree with that. So I am curious to see how he grows as a character and evolves and becomes more mature as a hero.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that people always get on him about. He's very impulsive. He wants to save everyone. He wants to be the hero in every situation. And it's like his heart, and he has like a very big heart. So I sympathize with that a lot. But I think it can be a flaw in a situation where you can't act impulsively when there's like a group of people and you're the only one. You're at risk of getting hurt and everything. But one thing I just remembered is I don't know if you keep up with the New York Bulletin. They have like a website where they'll post stuff occasionally about like just like obviously from like the fake newspaper in the little Marvel world, and they'll post like headlines and stuff. I need to go check that out because you know they might have some information on what's coming up.
Oh, that's a good idea. I didn't know about that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I used to go on there all the time when Defenders was coming out because they started being more active, and I was like, what's going on in Defenders? And it was pretty accurate. I went back after, and yeah, so I think they might have some stuff on there, like little sneak peeks and everything.
And I'm curious, and if you have any thoughts on this, because Netflix has said that they're interested in introducing a 5th character, maybe not in New York City, but another, which is going to be hard because virtually all the Defender-based characters are in New York.
Yeah.
But there's a rumor going around that they want to introduce a 5th, and the biggest person is that thinking of is Moon Knight. Now, I'm not a huge Moon Knight fan, but I'd be curious how they would bring him to life because I can't
wait, who's Moon Knight? Refresh my memory.
He's the guy with the white cloak, and he has the moon burned into his uniform.
Okay.
He's got similar powers to Spider-Man, except he doesn't have, and he has a healing factor. And one thing about those is they've been trying to make these characters more realistic, and I'm kind of like, well, how can you do that with Moon Knight? Because he's such a fantasy-based character. So he fights a lot of
kind of Iron Fist is though, with the whole like Kung Lung thing. So that's different from like the other characters because there's not really like that mystical thing other than like people coming back from the dead by the hand and all that. But that'd be really interesting. I think they should just keep it the way it is. I think everything's centered in New York. It's what makes them unique. They're like the little Avengers over there, like the Defenders. And I think it's what sets them apart from like the Marvel movies even. I think it's that intimacy within all of them having that close knit, like being in New York, being near each other, and then like Claire being like a reoccurring person. So it kind of brings them together. So I think they should keep it the way it is.
Oh, one final question. What do you think about Rosario Dawson announcing that she's leaving?
I think that's really interesting. I thought she was here to stay. I think it's going to be kind of odd if she leaves just because she plays essentially a role in all of them, coming together in Defenders. And I did look up a quote where she was like, yeah, like it's for personal reasons. So I'm not sure if something happened like on set or anything, or if like something was going not like happening that she didn't agree with. But she did say she would do something if they could incorporate her in the Punisher. I would love to see Frank and Claire like interact.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I want to see what he would do. I would love to see Frank and Danny as well. I think he would be like, what is up with this guy? He would be like, what is up with this dude? I think that Frank would like Luke Cage a lot. Which is bad though because Frank can't get him. So
right, exactly.
Yeah, and I think and then Frank obviously knows Daredevil. And Jessica Jones. I don't really know what he would. I think he would like Jessica. He would think she's funny, probably.
Yeah, probably.
I think he would like her humor.
I think so too. Now, I know I think I did 2 final questions for you, so sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
But Megan, where can people find you?
Okay, well, you guys can find me on YouTube. My username is ThatSweetDisposition all together. And I also have my social media, which is Megan Harris. And the A's are X's. Little confusing, but it's like that on everything. So once you got it on one, you'll get it on the others. And I also have my website is launching soon. It's ThatSweetDisposition.com. It is launching the week of June 11th. So I'm very excited. So you can find me on all those platforms.
That's awesome. And definitely give Megan a follow. She's really cool and awesome. And check out her YouTube channel, which I will link up in the little annotation spot. I will provide. But anyway, you can follow me on Twitter at RealJakeberry, and of course, check out my blog, jakeberry.blog, and head over to thedailywire.com if you're a premium subscriber. I was actually on Andrew Klavan's show today defending Marvel films, so be sure to check that. I know he finally gave me the opportunity, so be sure to check that out as well. And one final thing, just a reminder to be sure to subscribe and ring that little bell here at Studio Jake. Megan, thank you again so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's always fun.